Record this. All right. So, welcome. My name is Andrea Kennedy. I work for the city in our rent stabilization division, and I'll be going through a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation to talk about some of the requirements around property registration and fee payment. And then I'm going to jump over into the actual online database and do a tutorial about how you register. And we can cover some other things that you can actually do in the database that I think are probably the more common uses of the database. So we can cover some of those things as well. So that's me, I'm Andrea. And then we always start out just with a little reminder that city staff is not able to offer any type of legal advice, but we do offer sort of best tips and best practices and general facts and overviews about our programs. All right, so I will be giving the presentation and then at different open it up for questions, but also in general, especially with these types of webinars, if you have a question while we're working through it, just raise your hand and we can sort of pause while we're on the topic and I'll just address it right at the time. So kind of keep it a little bit more casual. So if anything comes up, or if you want me to go over something again, just raise your hand. Or if you're on the phone, dial *9. Alrighty, so this is our agenda. We'll go over, like I said, just a little overview. And we'll talk a little bit about compliance and enforcement, because that's relatively new. I'll go over allowed exemptions, and then we'll jump into the tutorial. All right, so most of us probably know already about the CSFRA, or the Community Stabilization and Fair Rent Act, that was passed by the voters in Mountain View, and it is aimed to do three main things. So we have stabilizing the rent, so those rent caps that are in place. We have eviction protections, and then the third thing is to ensure a fair rate of return for property owners on their investment. And most of our multifamily properties in Mountain View are going to be covered by this law because they were mostly built before December 23rd, 2016, when this law went into effect. But we do have two different types of coverage. We have fully covered properties that have to follow both the rent stabilization and eviction protection parts of the law, and those would be properties built before 1995. If they have 3 or more units on them. And then partially covered are those that are built between 1995 and 2017, and they only have to look at the eviction protection part of the law. And so if there are any questions about coverage, if your property is covered, you can raise your hand or type your question in the chat or the Q&A. Elizabeth, I think you have a question.
I do. I'm just curious, why are not duplexes included?
Duplexes are explicitly listed as exempt in the Mountain View CSFRA. So that's why duplexes are exempt from the law.
Why is that?
That is the way that the organizations who drafted the law, they included that.
It sounds like they had a couple of duplexes.
I'm not sure.
My neighbor, the only reason why I ask is my neighbor, she lived in a duplex and she got evicted. And yeah, because they were selling it. So I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, in Mountain View, that's not the way that the law's written. So yeah, there are duplexes and single family homes are not covered. Another question, Bridget?
Yeah, what about properties that were built after 2017?
Right, those would be exempt as well. So anything that's built after the start date of the law, then it's not covered by it. Or if it's like a 100% affordable rental property, that's not covered either. All right, good questions. All right, so we have our 2024 rental housing fee. I think most people should have received their invoices in the mail in the last day or so. But this is something that goes out every year, and it's required that landlords pay the fee. And it's established by our rental housing committee to fund the expenses of the program. So it pays for staff, it pays for third-party contractors like our legal counsel, we have hearing officers. We have some other organizations that we hire to help us run the program. We also have a Mountain View rental housing helpline, and we hold a lot of workshops and clinics and a lot of educational and outreach events. So it helps fund that as well. So each year the committee will set the budget, and then we take that total budget number and divide it by the number of covered units in the city. And so this year it comes out to $108 per unit, and that fee is due by January 31st. So you can sort of see I just added in a little step ladder here of some of the previous fees. You'll see we tried to keep it pretty low during COVID because people were, some tenants were having a hard time paying, and then it was hard for the landlords to pay the fee. So we tried to keep that lower during the. I don't know if we have any mobile home owners or park owners with us, but they are also required to register and also required to pay the fee. So unless we do have, I won't spend too much time on that, but the mobile home rental space fee also set by the rental housing committee and established sort of the same way with the budget divided by the number of parks. So that's $300 per space for this year. And that's also due January 31st, 2024. And this is just an example of the invoice. So it's going to look different than it has in the past. We used to bill through the city's finance department, and we are no longer doing that. We're billing through our database this year. So everything is in one spot. You can register and pay all at the same location. So we have a new invoice, and we are no longer billing together with multifamily housing. So you will get a separate city invoice for multifamily housing, and you will get a separate invoice for our rent stabilization fee. So just be aware of that. In this black section up here, you'll have your APN and PIN number listed on your invoice. And that's going to be, if you've never registered before, those are the combination, the APN and PIN that you need to enter in the system to claim your property. But I'll show you that in a second. All right, any questions about the fees? If you didn't get a copy of your invoice, you can let me know or send me an email. We can get it for you. All right. So just a few things to be aware of with property registration. It is mandatory. And by being mandatory, if you don't do it, you are considered substantially out of compliance with the CSFRA, which limits your ability to give any rent increases to your tenants. So that's why you want to make sure that you're paying the fee and that you're registering so that you can have your rent increases be legal. All right, so things to keep in mind. Oh, this should be, yeah. So online registration is due every year. So it's actually due by the 31st, the January 31st. So it should be in the system by February 1st of each year. I'll have to update that. If you are registering any exemptions, you have to do that every year as well. And you want to register your exemptions before you complete your full property registration, because we will calculate the fee minus any exemptions. So you want to make sure to put those in. What else you can do on the portal is update any new tenancies that you have, if any tenant was terminated, if there's any change in ownership or management contact information, you can do that in the system, and you're going to want to do that within 30 days of that change happening. You can also upload these required notices. So any termination notices you give, any termination notice follow-ups, banked rent increase notices, tenant buyout agreement. So if you do any of those notices and you serve them on your tenant, or you come up with a bank, an agreement for a buyout, you want to upload that through the database as well. And then just quickly to dig a little bit deeper into termination notice follow-ups. We'll see here, we mostly know that we need to file a copy of our termination notice with the city within 3 days of serving it on the tenant. But I think what fewer people know is that if you are also going through unlawful detainer, any UDs with the courts, any of that paperwork, you're going to also need to file a copy of that with the city within 7 days of serving that on the tenant. And then finally, if a tenant moves out of their unit as a result of either receiving a termination notice or receiving the summons or the complaint of unlawful detainer, but you haven't actually got the full eviction approved through the courts, but they moved out somewhere in between that time, you also want to let the city know that they moved out as a result of receiving those notices. And you can do all that online. Oh, a hand. Yep.
So with the mobile homes, we have a requirement, we do a 3 and 60, which is a 3-day notice to pay and a 60-day notice of termination and tenancy.
Mm-hmm.
At what point after the eviction, if we proceed through the court system, do we have to ensure and update the courts? Because the space is not the parks again until after we conduct a lien sale on the home. So at what point, so we have to go through the eviction, have the sheriff do the lockout, and then there is a lien sale for us to get the home transferred and have some kind of possession over that. So at what point do we need to be providing the city that information?
So the information that we're asking for, if you're going through the courts, is just if you get a judgment of it for the unlawful detainer, just to upload a copy of that within 7 days.
So you just want a copy of the writ of possession, and then after that, we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about compliance, because this, here we go. There we go. It started to be in effect last year, but it's still relatively new. So we'll talk about it here. And again, this is talking about registration and fee payment. There are other, bits where you need to be in compliance as far as like code and habitability and things like that, but that's not what we're talking about today. So any landlord or mobile home park owner who fails to register or pay their fees, again, they're considered substantially out of compliance, and they cannot lawfully raise rents or file any sort of landlord petition to increase the rent. And if a property is out of compliance, the city will first mail a letter to the property owner, letting them know that they are out of compliance. And then if the issue is not corrected within 30 days, then a second mailing can go out, and a copy of that letter will go to all the tenants so that the tenants will be aware the property is out of compliance. And if they've received any rent increases during that time, it's potentially an unlawful rent increase. So that happens. The other thing that happens is the database that we're in, it's searchable in a very limited way, but it will let anyone from the public be able to see if properties have registered or paid their fees. And I can show you where that is, where that feature is. The other thing are the penalties. So late payments for the rental housing fee results in a 4% late penalty on the amount that is unpaid. And then for property registration, there is a late penalty of $25 per unit per month. So these are both per month, so it can add up quickly for that. All right, fee exemptions. So the exemptions will reduce your rental housing fee payment by the number of units that are exempt. So by $108 per exempt unit. And so unit exemptions can be if an owner occupies the unit, if an owner's immediate family member occupies the unit. So that's like parents, spouse, children. So you can file an exemption there. Or if you have a duplex on your property. Some properties have some single family and some duplexes mixed in. The duplexes will be exempt. So you can file those exemptions there as well. The system will ask you to upload some sort of documentation if you're doing an owner exemption. Most people use PG&E, and it just has to have the name and the address with the unit number that you're occupying. So just some sort of documentation that you're actually occupying that unit. All right, so now it's the tutorial part. So I'm gonna continue with the PowerPoint for the first few slides, and then I'll jump over to the website. And again, just feel free to just raise your hand whenever and stop me before I get too far away from your question. Okay, so if you have never created an account before, that's the first step. So the website is mvrent.mountainview.gov. So that's always the website that I'm going to be referring to. It's separate from the City of Mountain View's website. This is our specific property registration website. All right, so you'll log in and it will look something like this. You just click on that landlord icon. And you first need to create an account. So if you don't have any login information, go to create an account first. Then you'll type in your name and the email address, and you'll create a password. Just a note here, if you are needing more than one person to access this account, we suggest that you have a business email or a general email created that you can use because only one account, one email can claim one property. And so if somebody already has it claimed, another person can't claim it. So that has been helpful for some people to do. As far as go, it does need to be between 8 and 16 characters, contain a capital letter, number, and a special character like a $sign or an exclamation point. something like that. And then you'll be able to click the submit button down here. And a little green notice will pop up at the bottom of your screen telling you an email verification is pending. You navigate over to your email, so the same email that you just used to create that account. And you'll get an email from capsupport@3disystems.com. Is not junk mail. That is the company that builds our database, 3DI Systems. So this is valid. So you'll go down to the visit the link to activate your account. Once you click that, it will bring you back on the website, and you can just click that go home button, and it'll bring you right back to the front, and you can really log in that time. All right, so now let me get out of here and get into here. Okay. So now that we have created our account, we can just log in. So I'll click Landlord. This is my account, and I'm on a test site right now, so everything I'm doing is just test, but it works the same. All right, so I'll sign in. These are all my properties. So if you have a lot of properties, you can, list them all here. But if you don't have any, it will just be blank. The only thing that will show is this one gray house here, and you can add property. Sometimes Google likes to automatically add things, so I have to delete them because I really want to put in my APN number in this top line. So I'll do that. And again, you can find that on your invoice. Let's show it. That's the old one. I'll have to update that. But in that black box on your invoice. Or if you're like the gentleman that asked the question in the beginning, he did this, and when he clicked submit, it gave him a notice that it's already been claimed, because only one account can claim a property at a time. So we have to see maybe an old employee or something has claimed it. That's really common if you have property managers and they move on from your company. We have to switch it on the staff side. All right, so I just went ahead and clicked submit because I typed in my APN and PIN number. And this property is on Del Medio here. So I find my property that I want to go into, and I click you can click anywhere. You can click view, or you can click the picture anywhere. It'll bring you into your property profile. All right. So as we're just sort of looking at our profile, we have a picture of our property here. I pulled it from Google. It's not always right. If you want to change it, you can do that by clicking on this camera and upload your own pictures. But you don't have to. It's up to you. The other thing we'll notice that is new, this little box over here where it has our fees. And then it'll give you a message saying fees calculate after property registration is submitted. And then if you need any help registering, you can click that link, and that takes you to the step-by-step step-by-step user guide. There we go. So you can, if you need help adding units, go to add unit, or whatever you need. It looks very similar to that PowerPoint that I was using, because it is. This is almost the same thing. All right, so next, when we scroll down, we'll see that Mountain View thinks that you have 5 units on this property, and it's registration open status, and we need to add owner contact and manager contact, and we're missing unit information. It will give you a whole detailed list of what you're missing, but if you scroll down, you can see I'm just missing all this information. So we'll add it in. If you've never been in the system before, the system is going to have auto generated some units. So you'll have to update these to the right way that you label your units. So if it's 1, 2, 3, ABC, you'll have to do that. If you've already done it before, like last year, all your information will still be in here. You just update it. All right. So the other thing to notice is up at the top here, we have some tabs. So you'll also notice that there's a little red exclamation point next to contacts. And that's because I need to add my contact. So as with most things in the system, if you look over to your right, you'll see the action buttons. So I'll click add contact. Contact type, we need to do owner and manager. I'm gonna just do this quickly, but you know, you definitely type in the information that is correct for your property. Preferred method of contact, email or mail, or I choose both. So I scroll down. I always just use my little mouse to scroll, but there is also this scroll bar over here on the side. It's harder to see, but it's there. And then you want to put in your home address here. Your mailing address. If it's the same as the home address, you can click this. So if you want to put in the address of like your main property office, you can do that for both of them. And that's where we'll be mailing like the invoices every year. So make sure to keep that up to date. All right, so our exclamation point is not gone yet because we still have to add in our manager. If you're a small operation and the owner and the manager are the same, you can click this box here, same as owner, it will fill in. You can choose if you want your contact, or if you have property managers, you can put their information here. So that's all that's required. You'll notice that this exclamation point is gone, but if you want to continue to add, you can keep adding under other and put people's contact information and then tell us, you know, who they are. Other thing to point out, and you'll notice this as sort of still the same pattern, these 3 dots, those are our action menu. They're always going to be over to the right of any category that you're looking at. So if you click it, you can edit or you can delete. And we'll be using this option throughout the system. All right, so that's all for contacts. Now I'll go back over to my addresses tab, which is where most of my updating is going to be occurring. And to here where I have my property address and I have my units. So I have one unit, this unit number 5, and that was already in there, but these other ones were auto added by the system because in previous years, maybe I just never got around to adding them. So now I have to go in and update that. So I'll choose my unit that I want to add, and I'll click the action, and I'll go edit. A pop-up comes. I want to update my unit number to 1. Select an occupant. You know, let's say I live in there. 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And I moved in last 2. Oh gosh, That's a while ago now. Time flies. And I'll update that information. And then you'll see here it's updated to the information I just put in. And now let's edit this next one to unit number 2. If it's a tenant, it's going to ask you some additional information, you'll see. Just depending on which type of occupant you have. Date of last rent increase. So if they've never had a rent increase before, you want to put the same date as the move-in date. And then you would just put 0 and 0 for the last monthly rent increase amount and percent, since they've never had one before. If they if they have had one, then you can just type in the correct dollar and percent amounts. So I'll update that. So you'll see now unit number 2 is here with all the information. So now that we sort of get that, I'm just gonna pretend these are all vacant so I don't have to type in too much information. Edit. Okay, so now I have all my information added into the system. And you'll notice that big list, those exclamation points and that big list of things that I needed to fill out, that's all gone now. And now it's just saying your registration. All needed to do are gone. So my unit summary has also updated because I filled in my information. So I have three 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and that is 5 units. This is unknown bedrooms. This is a known glitch that's not updating in the system. So we have a ticket in with our IT to fix that. It's not removing those once we update. So if you see that, just ignore it. It's okay. We're working on it. All right, so that is how you pretty much update your property registration. If you do have any exemptions, you're gonna do that over here in your action menu still. Everything's over here. You apply for an exemption. I'll just go ahead and do it. And I'll say it's because I'm living there. And then again, it's going to ask you to upload some file. Let's pick something that's not important. And I agree that that's true. And I'll submit. Oh. Question from Elizabeth?
Hi. So, I live in one of my units, and so can I do my PG&E bill, just the top sheet, or do you need the whole bill?
I just need just with the name and the address and the unit number. So just like that front page.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then you'll notice here on my unit overview section in unit 1, the status will show applied for exemption. So now you can know that this unit has applied for an exemption. And if you scroll down even more into your case history, that's going to keep a history of every sort of action that you do in the system. So anytime you apply for an exemption or submit a termination notice, it'll all show up here. And you'll see our most recent case, as we call them, is a unit exemption. It was submitted today, and it's in status open. So somebody from our staff will go in there and approve that. So if you upload it, it should be approved that same day. Alrighty, so once you sort of have done all that, you're good to go. And you just want to review and submit the whole registration. So you can take another look and make sure everything sort of looks right. You look at your units, everything looks okay. Then you'll click submit again. This disclaimer statement is different than it was last year. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that everybody is applying for their exemptions before they click this final submit button so that we don't overcharge for the units. All right, so you'll just read the disclaimer, basically that you have submitted your exemptions. And then you check this box acknowledging that your unit exemptions are submitted. And it will show you here that I've claimed 1 unit exemptions and no property exemptions. If you haven't claimed any, these will both show 0. And then if you forgot to, you need to go back, you can just click this little link and need to submit an exemption, click here. It takes you back in to the home page there. Oops, I'm not staffed today. There we go. Submit. All right. So since I went down the path of showing you a unit exemption, I guess I'll just go through the whole thing. So now there will be blue, it will be blue here and it will say pending staff review. And that's because you have an open exemption case for your property. And then staff will need to go in and approve that. Let me just do it really quickly so I can show you the whole thing. Going a little slow. 462. There we go. Okay. So staff just approved that. And you will get an automatic email in your email inbox saying that your exemption request was accepted. And then you'd want to come back in. So if you want to pay online, you can come back in. Oh, is there another step I need to take? Question from Elizabeth?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I just did, so owner occupied, so I just uploaded my PG&E bill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't submit everything until, because I have 2 other units. So I can't, can you just do partial, like units at a time? Because I still have to get another PG&E from my mother. So how does that work?
So you were able to upload it for one unit,
Yes,
and then you just need to do another unit,
yeah, two others.
two other ones. Yeah, you can submit them as you have the information.
Okay,
If you want to pay, I would hold off on submitting your full registration until you have submitted the other
okay. So
The other
don't
two.
submit anything until I do the other two?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, gotcha. But then, you know what, how do I go back to the other, to like, unit B?
How do you go back? Where are you now?
So I have, just A, B, and C for unit.
Mhm.
And I just did A, and so
Mhm.
now when I click on B, it's not letting me, oh, because I'm supposed to do submit.
Mm-mm. You can go into the three dots, the menu, and apply for an exemption for units.
It's, all it wants me to do right now is submit.
The exemption.
I guess.
Yeah, if you didn't finish submitting, so
Okay.
if you're in here, I don't know if you can still see, oh, I submitted, so I can't do it anymore.
So
But if you go in and you click, apply for an exemption, you'll have the pop-up. You choose which type of exemption, you upload something,
uh-huh,
and then you click the little box that says, this information is true, and then you'll click submit.
okay. Because I get the declaration statement, it says, by checking this box, I acknowledge that all unit exemptions and property
Oh, no,
exemptions.
no, no. Okay, yeah. So don't do that. Just click the little link right underneath that says need to file.
Oh, need to submit.
Yeah, and then it will bring you back to your home page.
Okay, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. And now I have registration open. Okay,
And then you should be able to still apply for the exemption for the other two.
okay, great.
But if you don't have any unit exemptions for everybody else who's on the line, and it's pretty straightforward, you just submit it, it will bring you back out to this homepage, and your next step will just be payment pending. It's just that extra step for people with exemptions. And I just wanted to show it since we do have somebody on the line. But for the rest of us, once we submit our registration, it will bring us right back out here. We're in payment pending, and now our fees will be updated. And there won't be any late fees right now. The test site is showing that there are, but on the real side, there will not be any late fees. You'll just have your rental housing fee and then the total. And if you want to pay by card, you pay now. And you could click yes to proceed with a payment. And then you'll just go ahead and type your card number in there, and you'll click the pay button. And that's pretty much how that works. So any questions about paying or registering, Elizabeth?
Sorry. Can you walk through a tenant occupied by tenant? Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me see. It's different because I just submitted that registration, so it looks different. So let me see if I have a property where. Maybe this one. Okay. So let's say I want to edit this unit number 2 here. So I'll go in and edit. And it will just ask me, is it, who's occupying? I'll say tenant, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, the move-in date of the tenant you want to put in, whatever that was. And then you want to put in the date of the last rent increase. So if there hasn't been one yet, because it's a new tenant, you want to still put in the same date as the move-in date. But if they have received a rent increase, you put that here. You type in their current monthly rent amount, last monthly rent increase amount, and the percentage. And then you should just be able to click update, and that will update for you.
Okay.
Mhm. Oh, someone's open view. Yeah. Any other questions from anybody? Or any unit specific questions? I guess just to wrap up, I can show you, which is really similar to how we did the unit exemptions. If you want to submit any termination notice or like a banked rent increase notice for your tenants, you'll do all of that in the action menu based on, which unit number it is. So if you go over here, you can submit termination notice. Oh, let me show you on a property that's registered. Submit termination notice. And then you'll just type in the information, the tenant name, tenant last name, the tenant's contact information, the date that the notice was served on the tenant, the reason for the eviction. Mostly what we get is a 3-day notice. And then you just upload a copy there, certify that it's true, and then you type in your name as the submitter. You can type in your contact information, but it's not required if it doesn't have the little star. And then you just click submit. So that's another thing you can do. Once you've submitted your property registration, that edit button disappears. So you can no longer edit your units. If you need to have a change in occupancy, you click this change in occupancy button, and then you'll just update, it was vacant and now a tenant moved in, and they moved in, September 2022. Did you apply any concessions? No. And then you just type in how much they pay in rent. And you add that. All these sort of what we call amendments, these little changes to the system, they need to be reviewed by staff, and then once it's approved, it will show up in your system. If you already have a tenant in your system, there will be an option that says change in rent, so you can do change in rent that way. But yeah, the edit button would be gone, and you would just do everything through the amendment. Any other questions or hangups? No? Okay, so let me move on to the end of my PowerPoint. All right. So we do send out a mailer every year around December, beginning of December. We sent out a letter this year, so it wasn't a postcard, but it was a letter letting you know that registration would open soon. And then you should have received your invoice within this last week. Here is our contact information on the screen in case you need any help. You can call us or send us an email. Both things work. We also have virtual office hours every week. If you want to have one-on-one help and you can share your screen, or we can share our screen and walk you through the registration process. It's every Tuesday from 10 to 12 at mountainview.gov/RSP office hours. That's Rent Stabilization Program office hours. And then we have a landlord-focused help center. And that's either in person or online, but that's at 298 Escuela. That's our office. Or you can join at mountainview.gov/housing help clinics. That's every first and third Thursday from 1 to 3. We do also just have our office staffed. So if you need to come in at a different time, you can visit us at 298 Escuela. We're right next door to the senior center. Looks like a little house, so it doesn't look like an office building. We also have free mediation in the city of Mountain View. Really good for landlord-tenant conflict, or really good for neighbor-neighbor conflict. If you have two tenants who are not getting along, it's a good program to offer as a resource for them. There are some legal resources for landlords. So Superior Court Self-Help Center or Santa Clara Bar Association Lawyer Referral Service. And then lastly, again, I'll end with our emails. So the mvrent@mountainview.gov is our general email. And then my personal email is andrea.kennedy@mountainview.gov. And that's the end of this presentation. So thank you for stopping by. We'll try to send you a follow-up email with a link to this recording and a copy of the PowerPoint and a survey if you want to take that. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by, or you can hang around if you have specific questions. Thanks.